Live from the Panera Studios, it's the Reading with Robin show, brought to you each week by my friends at Panera Bread, where their Pink Ribbon Bagel campaign just started to support Breast Cancer Awareness Month. You can support local breast cancer charities just by purchasing a Pink Ribbon Bagel throughout October. So go to your local Panera Bread and support this amazing campaign with the Pink Ribbon Bagel all throughout October. Panera is my favorite place to stop by for a cup of coffee, hang out with friends, and it's a great place for book clubs to meet. It's all at Panera Bread. And now, enjoy the show. Cristina Alger is a lifelong New Yorker. She's a graduate of Harvard College, NYU Law School, and worked as a financial analyst and corporate attorney before becoming what I love, the lawyer turned author. Her first novel, The Darlings, was published in 2012, and her second novel is out today in paperback, This Was Not the Plan. I love this title. I love the book, and Cristina was a treat of a guest here in Rhode Island at Point Street Reading Series. She's welcome back anytime with her husband, and I want to welcome her to Reading with Robin, Cristina Alger.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Robin.
Always a pleasure. And this is our first interview, which is funny because...
I know. I can't believe that. I feel like I've known you forever.
That's how I feel, too. And we always get to have the little pre-chat where I keep Cristina way too long because it was so wonderful having you here in Rhode Island for Point Street Reading Series. Well, I should now say the award-winning Point Street Reading Series. And when we set it up, I was looking forward to it because I really did feel like we knew each other. And then there you were, and you were such a great reader. Reading from This Was Not the Plan in hardcover at the time was, I don't remember which section you read, but I remember it was really funny, and everybody was just captivated by your reading. And it's wonderful when an author can read the way the book reads in your head, because in reading it, that it all made so much sense just listening to the way you were reading it. It's out in paperback today, so it's its second life, which is really cool. And the cover is very different. So, because I'm always fascinated when they keep the cover the same or go in another direction. So how did that come about?
Yeah, I have to say I love this paperback cover. I love it. I've seen so many covers of different books of mine in different languages, and I think this is my favorite. They just did it's such a subtle, elegant cover, and I love the first one. The paperback was such a graphic cover, and this one I just feel like is a really, I don't know, it feels sort of nostalgic, and it really, you see the little boy and the father on the beach, and you sort of immediately know that it's going to be kind of a warm book and about this father-son relationship, and so I think they just nailed it. I've never seen a cover where they sent it to me and everybody loved it.
I can imagine, because when it came to me, and of course my first thought was, wait, Cristina has a new book coming out, and then I realized, this is the paperback, because it is so different, and this is one of those books I would absolutely pick up. And in fact, it's always interesting to me, for somebody that reads so much, when I see a paperback and I don't immediately, I pick it up based on the cover, as we do. And I did that with Wendy Wasserstein's book, and the paperback was very different than the hardcover, and I bought it, and I said, oh, wait, I have this book.
You read it already.
Right, which is really, really smart. But this one is beautiful. It is a gorgeous cover, and it is evocative of the story, because after reading the story in hardcover and knowing what the story is, they absolutely did nail it. So it's out today. This Was Not the Plan, out by Cristina Alger, and you can visit her site at CristinaAlger.com. You can find her on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook. Which is your social media platform?
It's funny. I've never been a big Twitter person, and I was very much into Facebook. And then I started using Instagram, about a year ago. And at first I kept my Instagram private because I thought it would be sort of a forum to post pictures of my kids and post the books that I was reading. And then, because, of course, I love to read, and so, my public and private life aren't all that different, people kept saying, you should open up your Instagram. It's so fun to see what you're reading. And so I started following all these other writers, and now I love that medium. There's so many great book sort of accounts on Instagram. And so, I don't know, I guess I've sort of migrated over there, but I'm hopefully trying to keep both alive at the same time.
I agree with what you're saying. It's really interesting about our lives intersecting and who we are is who we are, because I kind of feel the same way with my Facebook page. I do have the private page, which is hardly private, and the Reading with Robin page, and they're really not that different, because what we do in life, yes, there might be some, if something's that personal, it isn't on my Facebook page anyway.
Exactly, I know. And
so,
we love
right,
what we do, so
that's
what we
right.
do is
That's
who we are.
Exactly, and that's how sort of I walk through the day. I mean, I was out yesterday, and whichever books I'm reading or whichever books are coming up on Point Street are always with me, and I will arrange them wherever I go. They're great conversation starters, and that's just how I sort of go through my day. So the same as it's reflected in social media, and I think that the dialogues, especially I find on Twitter, a lot of the writers and industry people, not so many readers that I follow or that follow me maybe, but I love the conversations back and forth with the writers. You just sort of feel like you're at an all-day, really fun book party somehow.
Totally, I know. Well, you sort of find your people.
You do find your people. You do find your people. And also, I'll just interject here, Elements of Style was a Wendy Wasserstein book, which I so loved.
Yes,
And
I love that book.
yeah, I just figured, I looked it up because I hated, I knew Elements was in there somewhere, but I hate to leave the Reading with Robin audience hanging. Well, which Wasserstein book was it, Robin? So I'm on the phone with Cristina Alger, her brand new, her second novel, and out today in paperback. This was not the plan. Also a great title. Talk about, I always like the nugget, how that story sort of started, and then, where it went from there. But those first few things that tied together where you said, okay, this is a story.
Well, it's funny. When I wrote The Darlings, I didn't have kids, and I was a practicing lawyer, and so, that book was sort of more of a legal thriller.
Yeah.
And I sort of, after that book came out, I set about to write another thriller book sort of in the same vein as The Darlings, and then I went off and got married, and when we came back from our honeymoon, I was pregnant, which was a surprise.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't realize it was that. Yeah, I know you haven't been married that long. Your daughter is that.
Not that long. We managed to sneak 2 kids out in the process, but yes, we came back from our honeymoon married definitely, but also pregnant with my daughter. And I tell everyone, I've done it twice now, I'm like the worst pregnant person ever. I'm like, I do not think clearly. I barely can write emails. I gain weight immediately. I become enormous at that. So, and I remember I did a book event. I was still doing book events for The Darlings that summer because it came out sort of 6 months. I was pregnant 6 months after the book came out. And
wow.
I remember seeing my agent at one of the events, and she was like, my God, you are enormous. What is going on with you? You look terrible. Brush your hair. Why do you look like this?
Aww.
So anyway, I was not a good pregnant person, and I just couldn't write this thriller. It just kept falling flat, and I felt like, oh my God, maybe I just had this one book in me and I'll never write again, and I just don't know how to balance all this stuff, so I'll just write it after I have my daughter, which is obviously, as any person who has a child knows, that's an insane strategy, because you definitely do not have more time when you have a newborn.
Yeah, but how would you know? I could see where that could be the thought pattern. Yeah.
So then my daughter was born, and, we were up every 2 hours, and I literally thought, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to write again. I don't have the time. I don't know how to balance anything, and I had all kinds of mom guilt about any time I took away from her. And honestly, I think I started writing as this catharsis. I sort of came up with this idea of writing a comedy that was about someone who was really, really struggling with that same issue of how to balance parenthood and professional life. And the character of Charlie was kind of born overnight, and that was sort of, I started writing just, I think, as my own kind of emotional release, and that's why I think it's a humorous book, because, I needed some to laugh about it. So that's where the book came from, and I wrote it pretty quickly and just sent it off to my agent, and my agent is actually pregnant with her third child right now, so she's
wow. And do you tell her how lovely she looks and how fabulous?
So yes, I do.
Hand her a brush?
So she and we took it to Simon & Schuster, and they were happy, even though it's very different than my first book, and so that's kind of the genesis of the book. But
I love that. And it's interesting too, because sometimes when The Darlings is your first book, so they want something similar, and you're gathering your readers, and so there's that idea of this is what they want, a different book but the same book. So I love that they were thrilled with this and to go in another direction. And it is really, it's heartwarming. There's nothing like a book about family relationships and redefining what that could mean, or changing what our view is of them depending on circumstances, and things do happen. We won't give too much away. And This Was Not the Plan. It's just such a great title, and it's funny, and it's charming, and I love the way you write, Cristina. And I'm on the phone with Cristina. You're welcome, with Cristina Alger. You can visit her site at CristinaAlger.com. You can find her on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. The book is out today in paper. This Was Not the Plan. The plan is October 26th at 7 o'clock at Shakespeare & Company on Lexington Avenue. I cannot believe it, but I have never been to that bookstore. How is this possible?
It's great. They actually redid it about a year ago, and they've added a cafe, and now they have reader events, and it's just become like a whole new bookstore. It's sort of our name. It's my local bookstore. I live around the corner, but I love
that.
What they've done, and they have great events, because I think there's so many writers that live in the area. So
sure. It's Lexington and where?
I think it's Lexington and 70th Street.
Approximately. Okay, so 11. Okay,
70th and 71st. Yeah.
Okay, so Lex between like 7th and 71st. So it's Shakespeare & Company, and that's on the 26th, Wednesday at 7 o'clock. I think Shakespeare & Company, and I think Paris, and I'm like, I don't think this is in Paris.
I know
this
I was reading there, but
I know. Well, they're in Frankfurt now doing rights, aren't they? Tell them that you want this book to be at the store in Paris. But I'll have to get there, my next trip into the city, which seems to keep changing. Also, I see November 10th you're going to be reading at The Book Soup in L.A., in Hollywood, in California. That's November 10th, 7 o'clock. So for the West Coast gang that's tuning in, you could go see Cristina read from This Was Not the Plan at Book Soup. Do you always read different? I love what you read at Point Street. Do you always?
No, I try. Yeah, I try to mix it up, because just for my own, because it's fun for me.
Just for your own amusement, of course.
So I sort of I've been trying to read different passages, but I actually say the passage that I read at Point Street was really fun. So although that was such a fun reading, because there were so many amazing writers there. So
it was really fun, but I loved what you read, and I especially enjoy watching the reaction from the audience, and then just sort of hearing them, as you're getting off the stage, hearing people say, I got to read that one looks really good, and that's the fun of it, really.
Totally.
So yeah, I love that. So you can go to CristinaAlger.com to find out where she's reading. And before I let you go, and I do love the idea of work and how to balance life and work, because I don't know. Do you have any tips? Are there any secrets, or it's just you do your best? Oh
my God, I wish there were. If there are, I wish someone would tell me what they are. I
know.
I feel like I have 2 kids now, so things are a little crazy in our house. But I guess the tip that I've come back to, and I feel like a lot of writers talk about this in a lot of writers groups and sort of the Facebook groups that I'm involved in, where I think writers have this tendency to not treat writing like a job, because you don't go to an office, you don't have colleagues, you don't sort of have hard and fast deadlines the way you do in kind of real office life. And I think the writers that I found that are most successful and the ones that are really pushing out a book every year or two, they say, like, you really just have to treat this like a job. It is your job. Even if you've not published a book before and this is the first thing you've ever written, go to the library, carve out your hours, and don't let your personal life kind of bleed in your work life. And I've sort of had to become really disciplined about that now that I have 2 kids, little guys at home. So anyway,
yeah, children will really set the discipline lever at a whole different level. But also coming from a legal background and all of the writing that you do, both in law school and in practice, and deadlines, I would think must be a really great example. I know everything goes out the window with children, but that training, I would think, really sets you up for a lot of success in your writing.
Yeah, it's funny, when I first started on The Darlings, my editor at Penguin kept saying to me, like, wow, I'm so impressed, you're so on top of it. And I kept thinking, like, but I'm just turning things in when they tell me to turn things in. And I think it's because, in law firm world, you absolutely never miss a deadline. That's just part of your job. It's understood that you do. And publishing, is like, there are a lot of writers that sort of feel the muse, and
that's
like
Hilarious, Cristina.
Business. So, but I think, the great thing about coming at writing from a corporate background is you're sort of used to, it doesn't kind of matter if the muse is moving you or not. You just have to turn things in on time. So
you've got work. That's funny. So it's refreshing for those working in publishing, and you're thinking, well, that's what you told me to do, and they're thinking, wow, she did what we told her to do.
No, but it was, that was why writing the second book was so hard for me, because, I was trying to write this second thriller, and it just wasn't coming together, and I kept thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to meet this deadline, and everyone and sort of all my publishing friends kept saying, it's okay, writers miss deadlines all the time, and I felt really uncomfortable with that. It's really stressful, so I'm just not used to that. But
yeah, well, I think that more publishers would be thrilled if more writers sort of took those deadlines seriously. I know every once in a while I'll be reading about a book that somebody's working on, and writers will sort of tease them, and I don't forget about these books, and sometimes I'll say, hey, wait, wasn't that? Oh yeah, they got pushed that back a year or whatever. It's just that idea of, well, it sounded good at the time, but that is really not how it should work, and it is a business. And I think sometimes, readers realize, I guess, when they're waiting for a book that it's a business, but it's not always sort of treated the same way across the board. So
yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's tough too, because you don't want people sort of putting out, garbage.
No.
I've told a lot of people that I work with, like, I don't think I'm the kind of writer that can do the book a year schedule, and there are people that can, and they do it so well, and I'm so impressed. I mean, I just am bowled over by people that can do that. But I know that if I was doing it, I would just produce, like, terrible things once a year. So.
Well, and I don't know if that's true. If you say so, I'll go with it, but I don't imagine you could produce anything that was terrible. But I think you have to know in life in general what our limits are, and you want it to be something that you're proud of, and you don't want to just have it to turn in. And then it needs to go through so much to be rewritten anyway. Then you're down to whatever the other deadline was in any case. So it's not meant for everybody to be doing them. And I'm sure we could all point to some that we'd wish maybe would do every 2 years or so. And there is a level at which it's too much of a lag, but 2 or 3 years or 2 years, I don't know what you're working on, but I think that whatever it is, I'm excited about it. So
thank you.
And before I let you go,
now that my son sleeps through the night, I think we're
oh, good. I know, and that is
working again in earnest.
And that's so important. I mean, there's so many wonderful writers, so many of my favorites with small children, and one of the things that I so enjoy about Instagram and Facebook are the family pictures and these kids, and they're so adorable to look at. And they must, I mean, your son's young, but your daughter must be so, like, does she go out and go, wait, there's Mom's book, or, get really excited? Does she? Yeah.
It's so fun. I was actually, my husband put this picture on Facebook like a few months ago. I guess it was when my hardback had come out. And Shakespeare & Co., as I said, is around the corner from us. And he said they were walking down the street. My daughter's only 3, so she's really little, and, you don't know how much she sort of understands about, like, this is, like, when I say this is my book, it's not like a book I own, it's a book I wrote. And so she walks by Shakespeare & Co. every day on her way to school, and my husband said, like, one day she just stopped, and she pointed in the window, and she said, look, Mommy's book, Mommy's book. And it was
I think I remember that picture, actually.
And it was just so cool for me, because I was like, oh my God, she gets it. That's so cool. So
that is really cool. Well, the really good thing will be when you're out and about and she just picks it off the shelf and goes around to people and says, "Did you read my mommy's book?"
Well, does
she do that?
I brought her to an event. She went to her first book reading this summer out in the Hamptons. I was reading at a library in Quogue, which is where my mom has a house, and so I thought, it was an early event. It was at 5, so I figured, like, she'd, not be totally grouchy. So she came to the event. She was so excited. She got all dressed up, and she knew it was kind of a big deal, but I don't think she understood what was going to happen. And she sat in the front row, and then I noticed, like, halfway through that she was holding a book, and I couldn't see what it was. And at the end of it, she got up and she holds this book over her head, and it's like a book on financial investing or something. She goes, "Everybody should read this book. This is my favorite book." And I guess it was just a book she swiped off the shelf on the way up.
Oh.
People were dying. It was so funny.
She's
I was like,
so
okay.
precocious. I love it. When you just said she was 3, I don't know. In my head, I had her as older. Just she has such a maturity about her, and
she's
old soul.
She's
Yeah,
going on 13. We like to say, but
that is hilarious. That's what she was holding up. Or you need to have a little chit chat with that child.
I know exactly. I was like, all right, I like that you're selling books. We would work on you selling Mom's book instead. But
Absolutely. I know. I mean, personally, when I'm out and about, I'm always, sort of hand selling and moving books around. But a 3-year-old can get away with absolutely anything. So I love that. Well, school break's coming up soon. I'm sure she.
I know. I got to get her out on the street corner selling books. So.
Absolutely. How cute would that be? Well, will she be there on the 26th at Shakespeare and Company?
No, I think we're going to play it by ear. It's past her bedtime.
Oh, it's 7:00.
So,
That's true. It is late.
If she takes a nap that day, we might bring her. So.
Yeah, we'll hide all of the economic, financial
I know, exactly.
books.
I'll load her. I'll give her a copy of my book in advance.
Absolutely. I think that is just nothing. Books and babies. There's just
books
nothing
and babies,
like it.
I know.
Yeah, puppies, books, babies, and puppies. And before I let you go, one final question. Always love to know what you're either reading or looking forward to reading. What's next up in your stack?
So I've been saying this to so many people that I feel like this has been the most amazing year for books. Not because my book came out, because so many good books are out.
I agree. It's crazy. Yeah.
So I am about to finish Caroline Leavitt's book.
Cruel Beautiful World.
Which
yes.
is just it's so good. And I am embarrassed to say I've never read one of her books before, but now
You're safe here. That's okay.
I know, it's so horrible. I have to go back and buy her whole backlist because Cruel Beautiful World is so beautifully written. I'm just so engaged with it.
What a great pick. Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm reading right now. And the last book before that I read that I loved so much was Behold the Dreamers, which I just think
in Bolas.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just an awesome New York book. So
it really is. Oh, those are great ones. And it's one of my favorite questions, and I think that sometimes it can be a question that you're like, wait, what should I read? What should I read? But I think the ones that really stick with us, yes, Behold the Dreamers and Cruel Beautiful World. Caroline is reading actually tonight at Point Street Reading Series.
Cool.
Yeah, she's the first author to make a second appearance, but I would tell you some of my favorites of hers, Girls in Trouble, Pictures of You, and Is This Tomorrow, are I think the last few, and then I read some of her older ones. You don't want to miss Caroline Leavitt's book.
Yeah,
so.
I'm going to order those right now.
Is this? Now I'm remembering them. Pictures of You, Is This Tomorrow, and Girls in Trouble might have been the first of hers that I read, and some of her essays that are in some of those collections always. And I always say about Caroline, definitely one of the most generous and giving writers out there, just with what she shares with her readers and her blog. So I'm so glad you and I, Cristina, we're on the same page.
Yeah,
I love
we are
it.
on the same page.
I want to know you're the kind of reader and writer that I want to know what you're enjoying, because I don't want to miss any of those. And you don't want to miss, this was not the plan, out today in paperback. You can visit CristinaAlger.com, find her on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on the 26th at Shakespeare and Company on Lexington Avenue in New York City at 7 o'clock, and November 10th at Book Soup, love that store, in Hollywood, California. So that'll be fun. And keep in touch, and I will catch you all over social media, and you'll come back and read again at Point Street Reading Series.
So much.
Love it. And hi to your sweetie kids.
I will.
And your lovely husband, and I will be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robin.